Welcome to the Magic Morning Wood with me, Clive Davis, and him,
Ron.
How's it going, Ron?
It's going existentially.
Ooh,
Clive,
I like it. I like the sound of that.
and keep it going. Yeah.
So,
yes. How about you? How's it going with you?
Yeah, equally existential as heck, I would say. So, Algorithm Machine is firmly in the on position, and the last film watched was Uncle Bunmi, who can recall his past lives, or in Japan, Bummi Ojisan no Mori, Uncle Bummi's Forest, which is a title that makes my wife laugh for some reason. I suppose Bummi Ojisan does sound quite amusing. So anyway, yeah, so we are reacting to Bummi Ojisan, and we both seem to have chosen the same route to our reaction piece, which is films by the same director, right?
Well, actually, I was going to go with magical realism. So I Googled magical realism films.
Okay.
And then saw one film. I was like, oh, that kind of looks interesting.
Right.
Tilda Swinton. And I was like, oh, same director. All right, guess that makes sense. actually went the other way and ended up in the same place. So.
Okay. So there's a coincidence that we chose.
It was. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So for my choice, this is the director Apichatpong Weerasethakul. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's as close as I'm going to get. And we go back to 1999 and his very first feature film, right? He'd done a few shorts before this, but this was his feature debut, which I recall coming out, and I recall it getting a bit of buzz, and I wanted to watch it, but with one thing or another, I never saw it. Didn't see any of his films until we watched Bummi Ojisan for last time. So I thought, okay, now is the time to go back and check out Mysterious Object at Noon. And you can as well, viewer, sorry, because it's over at internetarchive.org, right? Nice 2013 restoration with subtitles all the way through, which weirdly enough, there seem to be some versions out there with partial subtitles for some bizarre reason. Like, I understand no subtitles versus subtitles, I get that. But there was one version we found which just had a subtitle like every now and again or something.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what version of Memoria you watched, but the version of Memoria I watched had subtitles all the way through, although the English subtitles for the English speaking were wrong. It was like it was like rewording of the English.
Yes.
And then there was like a 2-minute section in the very middle, which we'll talk about, I guess, later, or closer to the end, where all of the subtitles were just in Thai. And then it switched back to English for the rest of the movie. It was really bizarre.
Were they
Thai? I thought it was Thai. Like phonetically, it looked like it might have been Thai speed, but it was, I don't know, but it could have been something else, right?
Because when we do get to that scene, we'll talk about it. They mentioned.
You know what I'm talking about? Did you get the same thing?
Because they mention, do you understand my monkey gibberish? And then when they switch back to English. So I think they were speaking like fake Spanish is what they were doing. I think they were speaking like a weird Spanish that didn't make sense.
So the subtitles were on purpose then?
Yes.
Oh, I actually thought it was. I was like, well, someone made a mistake here in these 2 minutes. I was going to try to download another version of it to see if I could fix it. But yeah, I didn't.
The only reason I assume that is because the timing's perfect. That as soon as he says, "Do you understand my gibberish?" it goes back to normal. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mysterious Object at Noon. So this is black and white, shot on 16mm, 3 years in the making. According to the trivia at the IMDb, they basically stopped filming when the camera broke down. Apparently the last scene in the film was the last bit of film that went through the camera before it broke down. I
Right.
don't know how true that is. It sounds like a bit of an urban myth, but I like it. Print the legend, right?
Sure.
So this is, basically a cinematic version of the parlor game Exquisite Corpse, right? If anyone's ever played this game where you draws like a head and then you fold the paper and then the next person draws the neck and then you draw, and there's other versions of it as well where you write a story, or it can be quite amusing, like a round robin kind of thing, right?
Right. Adding a sentence and fill it over, another person adds a sentence.
Yes. So basically, it's funny actually. I was thinking there might be other might be other film versions of this out there, but I couldn't think of one, and it's kind of surprising. It's actually quite an ingenious concept, regardless of what you might think of the end product, and we'll get to that. But it's quite an ingenious idea to make a film in this narrative way. I think. I don't think I've seen that done before. Have you seen that done before?
Not that I can think of. Not
Seems,
directly, anyway.
Yeah, it seems like something that there must be another example of it, but I can't. Nothing comes to mind, But anyway,
Not narratively, anyway. So yeah.
No. So it starts with a woman in like a food cart, right? That's selling fish oil or something, and she tells some kind of story about being sold into slavery as a child, and the director then asks her, "Can you tell us another story?" And she starts to tell this story about a boy in a wheelchair and his teacher, his female teacher. And she tells the story to a certain point where I think we're in Bangkok at this point, and then we cut to like a dramatization of the story she tells, and then we cut to someone else. We cut to like a variety of different people as the film moves. The crew move out into the country, right? There's some elephant wranglers, like these teenage elephant wranglers, and there's some food vendors, and there's a cackling old woman who's kind of getting drunk, it seems. And there's a bit where there's like some sort of village theater troupe or something, and they put on a performance, and there's a guy playing like, I don't know what that cool long wooden.
Oh yeah, some kind of mouth organ. Yeah, it was really weird.
I've heard it in Thai music, but I've never seen it being played. I didn't realize it looked like that. But it's a cool sound. I love the sound those things make. It's like Thai Zydeco or something like that. It's and basically the story evolves and you get dramatization. Then some people tell a different story and they continue the story, and that's it. Really, that's the framework of the film, right? It's just people telling the story. The story mutates, and after a while, it also gets into like the making of the film, right? At a certain point, you kind of see behind the scenes. They're at a film studio, I think, at one point for a little while, and then how they're going to make it, and behind the scenes, and and it all sounds very, very, very arty, wanky up its own ass, but I didn't think it was ultimately, because I think Apichatpong Wirasathakul actually likes people, right? I think he actually likes people. So there's one extraordinary scene where there's like half a dozen kids, right? Just in close up in front of the camera. There's a boom mic, static shot. That's it. Nothing. You wouldn't think this shot would generate, but there's something amazing about the scene. I don't know. There's something about the interaction between the kids, and they're just fucking about, and they're deliberately like making the story that goes into like, it turns homicidal and someone gets murdered and there's fantasy and there's a magic sword. And it's just something about watching these kids just fuck about. I was just like, I had a huge grin on my face through that whole scene. I found it really, really kind of enchanting. And again, like we said with Uncle Bummi, warm. It feels like someone who actually likes humans, which for me is why it sidesteps the potential pitfalls of something kind of arty and like overly self-indulgent, or for me, I I I I don't know if I would go quite so far as to say masterpiece, but it's fucking close for me. Yeah, I fucking love this film. How did you get on with Mysterious Object at Noon, Rob?
Wow, those are strong words. I would say that there's not, again, nothing quite like that, but maybe one movie that might be kind of similar. I don't know. This is a thin connection, but when you're talking about how like the exquisite corpse thing and all stuff, it kind of reminds me of the what was it called, the Aristocrats.
Right, about telling the
Telling
filthiest
the
joke.
same joke, but like everybody tells the same joke in a different way, kind of thing,
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's something there a little bit. Yeah, I can see what you mean.
yeah, a little bit of like it's one story or one narrative or one thing that follows through, and then it's sort of documentary style where everyone has their own kind of take on it, right? So their own,
Right.
their own
Yeah, no,
way
I can see that.
of
Yeah.
presenting it. Yeah. Um, yeah, uh, I have to come down more inside of the arty stuff. It was just it was a bit of a slog for me. So
Really?
yeah, I definitely I thought it was very much a first movie. It was really like, yeah, I thought he was it was, yeah, it definitely, he himself is definitely an exercise in patience. Like you you really,
Yes.
yeah, and which is not in itself bad. But yeah, I just sort of um I didn't I think it didn't think that the story itself was interesting enough to follow. So having all these people tell the same story, I think it's, you need to have investment in the story, but I didn't have any interest in the story that they were telling either. So yeah, I don't know. I did like, I got the idea of what he was kind of going through and going for, and I think that it was an interesting idea, and certainly kudos for him for trying it and for coming down on, like, but I think it was too choppily edited, and I don't think it was it flowed enough. Like that, I mean, it was, I had to, I don't know about you, but I actually had to look it up that they're actually telling the same story, because it was so like tangential that it was almost, that it was even the same thing that they're talking about. So I didn't even get that, and like on my own, I had to kind of figure that,
Oh,
find
okay.
that out. Yeah, I don't think it was very, yeah, I don't know. I just think I thought it was just really experimental, and good for him for trying it out. I thought it was really interesting to see uh these two movies together, though, which is essentially his first and most recent movie, right? So seeing his sort of him as
There's a definite
specifically,
through line, isn't
yeah,
it?
there's definitely like a line, and definitely you can see like an evolution, and a maturing. And I think Memoria was a lot more mature for a filmmaker than this one was. It was like a kid in film school. It felt like, you know what I mean, which is kind of what it was. I don't know if he was in film school, but it just felt like stuff that you would do to make yourself look smart, I guess. So yeah, I didn't get along quite as well with it.
I think
Yeah, it
it's
was,
just more
yeah,
refined, isn't it? Because I think with this, you get the
yeah.
feeling that everything he's always wanted to do is
Mm,
like, just
mm,
thrown it. But I always respond to that kind of thing quite well myself. I don't mind that I lost the thread of the story for a while, because I did as well. At first, I'm like, what's going on, and then it kind of picks up, and then you're okay, and that's something he does a lot in Memoria as well. Actually, is he he he's quite happy to suddenly like drop the trapdoor from under you, and for a while you're in free fall. You're like, what's
yeah,
relation to what just happened? And then it picks up. But I like that. I personally
yeah.
find
No, it's fine. And I think in Memoria, it's more earned. I think in this one, I think I talked about that with a little bit with Boomy, which is that I thought some of it wasn't earned, like the patience he expects or demands from the audience has to be, you have to earn it, and I don't think he always earns it. In this case, I don't think it was earned. It was, yeah, I think it was, yeah, I mean, it was a very I don't know if solid is in the right word, but it was definitely his first effort. And it felt like a first movie for me.
I
So
think
yeah, so
I
yeah,
think what you're trying to say, Ron, if I might paraphrase you, is I am nothing but an ant trying to protect a mango tree. I think that's what you're trying to say, isn't it? I think, in essence.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like that. Yeah. Yeah. When the mango tree is all these movies you make me watch.
Oh, and you're protecting them. You're protecting them.
I'm protecting
Oh,
it. Yeah. So I thought it's falling over on me. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I just, yeah, couldn't find much to get along with in this movie. So I was surprised that you went so almost to a masterpiece to that level. So yeah, it was that's quite surprising. I thought you'd be like, it was pretty good, or I expected you to get along with it, but I didn't think you'd go that far with it. So that's quite surprising.
yeah, neither did I. Yeah, no, along with me and Memoria as well, actually. Now that discovering the Apichatpong with a cool filmography has been a major find for me this year. I am already planning to watch all his other films as well, but I'm not sure if we'll do them on here because well, we don't want to belabor the point if you continue not quite getting along with them. It's basically the same story again and again.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah. But I mean, it wasn't like I was like, oh, this is total shit. I mean, it was like I appreciated what he was doing. It was like felt like a film student kind of project for me. Like it was like I appreciated what he was trying to do. I appreciated that he was trying to do something that really had never, as you said, never really been done on film before. That, to my knowledge, he was trying something interesting. It was, it was like a collective theater piece. You know what I mean? Like it was sort of guerrilla filmmaking and making it up as he goes along, but trying to put some stuff together. And yeah, good for him. It was it just, I didn't really think the end product was that noteworthy, but I definitely appreciated his process, right? So that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's I mean, it's certainly, if you are interested in his work, it's definitely a key one, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so what did you choose by accident then, Ron?
Well, as I said, I've already so I went to the other end of his filmography to his most recent feature, which was Memoria from 2021.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Correct me. Yeah, so Memoria.
Right. I never correct you when you're right, Ron. There's no need for that. It's just so seldom. That's this thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So seldom. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this again, same director, same writer director. This one 2021. This one starring Tilda Swinton.
Also an executive producer on it, right?
Right.
So did you notice here? This was a surprise to me, and I looked it up, and apparently he actually produces quite a lot of things that I didn't. Did you notice who was a co-producer on this film?
I may have noticed. Remind me who it was.
Danny Glover.
Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah, Danny Glover. I don't think I did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Danny Glover.
At first, I was like, oh, maybe it's another Danny Glover.
Another Danny Glover. Yeah.
Sometimes IMDb gets mixed, but I looked up, and he has quite a few credits in recent years, and they seem to be quite like independent films as well. So right. Yes, I didn't know Danny Glover had that string in his bow, right? That he was
right. That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and so set in Colombia, and like half of it is in Spanish and the other half in English. So it's very interesting to have like a Thai writer director directing Scottish woman in Colombia. Like it's such what a mishmash of things, right? Like so.
Well, you mentioned the Scottish thing. There's a couple of things. So yes, if you look up the plot synopsis on IMDb and other things, they specify
she's supposed to be Scottish, but she's not Scottish, right?
Oh, she's from a Scottish family. She's
okay.
English, but what I mean is, there's a Scottish woman in Colombia, and then as you're watching it, you're thinking, oh yeah, that kind of looks like it could, and it was filmed in Colombia. But at no point, I don't think, does she ever refer to herself as Scottish, and
no.
Never do they refer to Colombia either.
Oh yeah, that's
I
true.
don't. Actually, they do mention like Medellin and Bogota, but
Yeah, Medellin.
after
Yeah,
a while.
yeah. So
But I'm not sure if it's important that she's Scottish.
no, I know, but it is. She's an expat, which is the more important thing, right?
Yes,
So, but
yes,
she's not Thai. Like she's an English speaking
right.
expat in a Spanish speaking country, which ends up being Colombia. But the whole thing is written and directed by a Thai director, which is just interesting because, of course, he has. You would assume he has little. He goes from his first movie, which is sort of following his Thai countrymen around and find, kind of like slice of life in Thailand to get this sort of like folk tale versus this one where he's, just it seems like it's almost a fish out of water thing, but it's interesting that he went this way. So I don't know what his background with Colombia and
Yeah,
Tilda Swinton is, but
altogether it's a Thai, Colombian, UK, French, German, Mexican, Qatar, Switzerland, US, Taiwanese, Chinese co-production.
well, yeah, there you go.
And I think it was, even though he's a Thai, so not quite sure which one comes first. I think it's first and foremost Colombia, because I think Colombia put it forward for their Oscar.
Yes, but didn't get nominated. Yeah.
No. Tilda Swinton as well, of course, has been in some Pedro Almodovar stuff, right? So I think, well, clearly she's downplaying how well she speaks Spanish in this film.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this is this one has more of like a through storyline. There are still, like, as you said, they dropped the floor out from underneath you a couple times, and it's quite random stuff. But at least there seems to be more of like it's quite kind of relatively understood what's happening in most times. Yeah.
That's interesting. See, I found this more
or not.
Yeah, I found this more existential in a way, in terms of this going over there, that over there, and that's fine. It kind of, I can see how it kind of exists, or it might coexist, but as messy as Mysterious Object Unknown is, it does have a very strong narrative thread in a way, that they're all just telling this story, right? Whereas this is, I mean, it's up to a lot more interpretation, I think, as to what the story is.
Sure.
It's more refined and less messy and more classically made and structured, right?
I think the problem with Mysterious Object at Noon was that I think that the way of telling it was so disparate that it almost felt like different stories to me, which is why I found it hard to find the through line. Whereas this one, I can kind of see, at least it has, there's at least a main character that is consistent all the way through. So you can see that it's actually the story of a character as opposed to just random things that you know what I mean? I think the character base is what makes it more grounding for me, whereas the other one, because it's just different people telling different things, and you're supposed to get that it's the same thing, but it wasn't as clear, right? You know what I mean? So
right. That's interesting, because I think other people would take against this in a different way. Like, the one thing you would say about Mysterious Object Unknown is, even though it's like we said, very messily told and it's constantly changing. There's something, it's in a way, it's not frenetic exactly, but it's kind of moving. It changes every few minutes, so you don't get a chance to get bored necessarily, even if you don't know what's going on. Whereas I think with Memoria, people who have a problem with long takes, slow cinema, would probably find Memoria, judging by the some of the comments on IMDb, would find it more of a chore, just because it is so glacially paced, right? Like,
well, I mean, if you talk about pacing, certainly Misters in Midnight moves along at a clip much higher than this one. Although even still,
there's a lot of ways you could take against.
If you're talking about pacing, that's quite different. That's quite different. Narratively, I think this one holds up better. Right. But I think pacing wise, the other one is certainly clips along there. Definitely this one, especially at 2 hours and 15 minutes, definitely felt like it could have been trimmed a little. I mean, if you are against the glacial pace, I'll keep that term.
For me, my just an overall, the thing I had with this film was until maybe the final third, maybe I would say, I thought, oh, this has got really great scenes in, but it's not hanging together. You know, he hasn't fine-tuned this one. He's dropped the ball a little bit with this one. I thought this might be the first Apichatpong film I've seen that I didn't quite get along. But then when I found when it moved into its final third, it had a cumulative effect. And then it made sense. And then I was like, motherfuck, he's made another great film. For me, at least. Finally, I when the end credits were rolling and just listening to the sound of the radio, I was just like, oh my God, another feast from this man, right? Who is now my new favorite director, right?
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, patience required, right?
Yeah. It's definitely an exercise in patience, this guy, right? So like, yeah, you can't, if you're looking for a smash bang movie, like, look elsewhere, right? So, but
you were saying
this one
earned, yeah. So while you mention your opinion, I'm wondering, do you want to fold in? Do you think, whether you got on with this or not, do you think this earns it in a way you're saying the other?
Well, as I said, I think this one earned it more than the other one did. I'm finding it hard to put into words why I think that, but I just think the other one, yeah, I don't know. I was just more invested in the mystery or the story, at least, and of course it goes, random places where, suddenly the sound engineer doesn't exist and she goes to check up on him and they're all like, oh, that guy never works here, right? So, and it's sort of like and then it's never talked about. It's just sort of like, it's gone, right? So
how the story started. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So anyway, the story is that Tilda Swinton is an expat living in Colombia, and she is awakened one night by this like kind of loud banging noise, and she thinks it's sort of construction going on nearby, but it turns out that there is no construction, and she seems to be the only person that can hear it, and she keeps hearing it over and over again. And so she goes to like a sound engineer to try to recreate the sound artificially, right? And they play around. There's like a whole sequence where they're just in the sound studio. We're playing random sounds, and she's trying to use words to describe how it sounds, and he's tweaking like the sound and never to try.
One of the great scenes, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah. So. And then so then she kind of goes out, and there's a whole thing where her sister is in the hospital and is not feeling well because she's working on some sort of an archaeological dig, and the sister seems to think that maybe she's been cursed by some like natives who are doing like a curse to keep people away from the dig site and stuff.
The first time we meet the sister, she's in hospital, right? She's
in the hospital, and then she gets out. And then thinks that's because of this sort of curse that people have been placing on the site and to keep people away from digging there.
This is, I think, is it maybe her husband, Daniel Jimenez Cacho, who's been on the show a lot. I was quite surprised. He was in We Are What We Are, Bad Education, Deep Crimson, Kronos. We've talked quite a few. Daniel Jimenez Cacho.
Yeah.
Welcome back. By his role here is like, quite small, like
it's just like the one scene, right?
Established actor, and apparently the sister as well is played by, I'd never heard of her. This is the only feature she's made. Agnes Breck or Brecke. Apparently quite a big deal in the theatre world, but just doesn't do films. And she has a bit more substantial. But I was kind of surprised to see Daniel Jimenez Cacho just in a role that was pretty.
Maybe he's friends with the director or in that world, and then just sort of like stop by, do cameo, whatever.
I would imagine a lot of people want to, like Tilda Swinton, for example. I would imagine this is like the kind of filmmaker you want to work with, right?
I think I get the impression Tilda Swinton is really into this kind of film. She's, I mean, looking at some of her filmography, taking out the Marvel stuff, whatever. Like, what was the first movie that we did? Remember we did her first movie back with Yes, that one, back there, right? So like it's kind of has, similar tones in terms of like the surrealism and sort of magical realism, I guess, with that movie, right?
Yeah, so she's definitely a friend of independence. I suppose the role that made her famous was Orlando, right? Because she was like perfectly cast because she famously has that kind of androgynous look, right, which she's known for. And yeah, she's interesting. She's very, very good. She's always really, really good. But every time I do wonder if I've never met the woman. She might be a laugh riot in real life, but I suspect she might be someone who was a bit of hard work to get along with. I don't know. She seems like she's someone who might take herself a bit too seriously.
Too seriously, yeah. I can
But
get that too.
she is good though. She is always like there's
she's solid.
There's very few actors who you can watch like do nothing for long periods of time, right? Without them mugging and kind of doing too much or something. But she just seems really she seems really comfortable, except when she's not supposed to look comfortable, and she can do that as well, if you see what I mean. Like the camera really does like her, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, she's just interesting to watch, right? You know, she's kind of an interesting person, an interesting like physicality, and she's she's a solid actor too, right? So anyway, so anyway, at one point she goes back, it's sort of like it's almost implied there's some sort of a budding romance between her and the sound engineer, and they kind of like set up that he's gonna take her on a trip to see, like, to this countryside or something.
Right, he offers to buy something very expensive for as well.
A
cooler for orchids or something, right?
And he's gonna give her like this thing, and she's like, no, I can't accept that from you. But he seems to be almost enamored with her a little bit. Yes. And then she drops by to, like, before their trip to the studio, and the other people there are like, who have never heard of that person? That person doesn't work here, and that's the end of that part of the story. It never mentioned again. And then
they watch so she's quartet play in the studio for a while, right?
Yeah, and then she watches there's some musicians play, and she's just sort of like, I guess she's a good. I think maybe the reason I got on with this movie more is that I think generally you experience this guy's movies with this sort of like curiosity and confusion. I think is kind of what he goes for. This magical realism, this sort of like, you're like, what the fuck's going on here? You know what I mean? This, and I think having a character that you can experience that through,
right,
gives you more of an in, I think, right? So, and I think that's probably why I got along with this one a little bit better, is because you can follow her and she's sort of mirroring your reaction a lot of the time, right? And so you're like, oh, okay, so I'm not alone in the experience of what's happening in this movie. I'm supposed to be feeling this way, and it's kind of mirrored through that character, right? So,
like, but me and definitely Mysterious Object Unknown, there were a lot of kind of non-actors or not as experienced actors necessarily. So it's more about the general ambiance. You don't necessarily have one performer, but you're quite right. Tilda Swinton really does pull you through this film.
And I think that's really why I think she kind of makes the movie sort of more relatable, or at least allows you to get in better, right? So, or to follow it, right? So so anyway, she's so she goes out with her sister and her sister's husband, which we talked about earlier, and now her sister's feeling better, and they're kind of pontificating and trying to figure out why she felt bad, and they some people think there's a curse and all stuff. And so she's just kind of,
there's a few indications as well before the sound engineer suddenly, there's like a little exchange where they talk about some a dentist, and she's like, oh, he's dead.
And he's dead. Oh yeah.
He's alive. What are you talking about? There's like a few little indications that she's living in some kind of other world or something.
She was like, they're like, oh yeah, that dentist he died last year. He's like, no, he's not. He's alive. Yeah, so you get the impression that she's a little bit disconnected from everything that's going on. That she doesn't know what the hell's going on. And then and then I guess the final third, which you were talking about, is she kind of like is kind of walking. She's kind of following the noise and trying to figure out where this noise is coming from, and then follows the stream, and then finds an old man also named Hernan, who is has the same name as the sound engineer, but now is a very different guy. He's just an old guy sitting by the stream at his old kind of shack in the country.
This is Diaz, and the younger one played by Juan Pablo Urego.
And then you get the kind of, as they're talking, they have this very, kind of long, kind of just kind of still conversation where basically comes out that he's an alien, and it's all an alien thing, and they're aliens, and they have sort of a, as you said, a strange monkey talk, which
Yeah.
kind of, I guess, goes back to the Uncle Boomy thing, right? But the monkey talk.
Yeah. So yeah, they have this long conversation where the subtitles don't make any sense, and then
Yeah.
when he says, "Oh, you understand my monkey talk," I suppose it's supposed to be like a revelation that why do you understand me? Because most people wouldn't.
Don't.
I think
Right,
this is the point as well where the film was like almost lost me and then regained me, right? So
right.
there's this long bit where he's like scaling fish and they just, and I thought, okay, this is the pinnacle of up your ass tedium.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Watch
And
me scale
then,
some fish.
and then there's like this kind of remarkable scene where he,
Yeah, where he dies, right?
yeah,
Or
or
he sleeps.
says,
He
shows
says
her
he's
how
going to go to
sleep without dreams, right?
sleep without dreams. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, we don't dream. So she says, show me or something. And then he goes to sleep. He just lays down, and then, but like basically sort of lays completely still for an,
He looks
like
dead. He does look dead.
he looks very dead, which, I mean, outside of the movie, just speaking from like like an actor's point of view,
Yeah.
that was really remarkable to be able to. I mean, it's hard to play dead on film, but usually it's a shortcut because you kind of have to hold your breath, right? Because people are always watching your chest move. That guy was laying there completely still, no breathing, for probably 10, like, I don't know, it was not 10 minutes, but it was at least maybe 5 minutes or so, right? And
My
like,
guess
and
is
usually
has to be some digital manipulation. I think.
there's got to be some
Very
kind of cutting or something like that, right? Or he doesn't move, and the camera doesn't move, and then they can kind of edit it together so making it look like it's, I don't know what.
Is what brilliant about it is you can tell it's not a freeze because the grass and everything's moving around it, right?
Yeah, it's still moving. Yeah, it's right, exactly.
It's a fantastic. I don't know how they did it, but if it's however they did it, it's a remarkable scene. And I think that's when it pulled me back in, and I was like,
right,
hang on now, that's, if nothing else, that's just,
it's pretty cool.
Bravo, that's,
bravo to that guy, right? Yeah, that he's able to do that. And so then, so she's just sitting there waiting, and then he wakes up, and then they go back inside his head, and then they start talking about dreams, and it turns out that like their dreams are kind of almost intertwining or something, that they've kind of been mixing.
And she can kind of I got, again, this is open to interpretation, and I think we might want to not, unless you particularly I think we might want to not mention the very last twist because it is so fucking what now? I think it's worth discovering by yourself.
Well, I don't think it's really that much of a twist. I mean, he basically said that he was the whole time, right? So
yeah, but the way it played, I didn't expect that. Did you expect that?
Oh, really?
I didn't expect that reveal.
I didn't expect it from this movie, but it wasn't like a shock when it happened because he said that he was.
Yeah, right? Not thematically, I suppose, but just the way it plays out visually.
Visually, I didn't expect him to actually bother doing that kind of thing. Didn't think it was his kind of thing to do, right?
No, which is interesting because it also proves to the naysayers who are like, maybe, well, you're just disguising the fact that you can't make a proper film by, no, he can. He can if he wants to. Right. But prior to that, my interpretation is, it's interesting. It's almost like they're focused, like in the place that they're in. They almost like it's almost like they're tuning a dial on a radio or something, and they're listening to past events or something in that space. Right. Oh, this happened there one time, and again, that's just one interpretation. And they seem to be almost using each other as antennae or something, and it changes where they're not touching each other, and then she hears that sound as well, right? It kind of
he's like she's holding his arm or something, and then and then he takes it off, and then the kind of the whatever they're hearing stops or whatever. So it's sort of action.
And after the big reveal, there's a bit more of a coda, and you hear some stuff on the radio, some radio reports about different things. And I noticed on IMDb, for instance, some people like doing these spoiler reviews when they were like, oh, see, it all makes sense, and they try and string it all together, like this was connected to that extra. And I'm thinking, what? Why are you doing that? Like, you're not making it any richer. You're just that's not interesting for me, at least.
I think, well, these people just need to have everything make sense for themselves, right? They can't,
I guess, but it's just like I don't understand why you have to do it. But you don't have to do it. It works. I suppose we talked about this when we were talking about Enemy a long time ago, right? Where
I'd say that was the closest film that this film reminded me of, was Enemy. Like, I kept thinking of the movie Enemy when I was watching this movie, right? So it was very yeah, it had a similar feel to it, I guess, right? So I mean, it was a very different kind of movie,
Yeah, and
but
that's more
yeah,
paced like a regular movie as well, right?
yeah, right, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Um, but yeah, it was yeah. I mean, again, as I said, I got on a bit better with this one, but I thought it was yeah, I thought it was it, you know 2 hours and 15 minutes. Oof, it felt long, to be honest, but it was able to earn it more. I think I mean I think it had some good
Yes.
stuff that was there was stuff that was enough to pull you into the movie and to the story and to the characters enough to earn those moments of stillness, right? Which is, yeah. So that's why,
Yeah, it's long, but it should
yeah,
be, if you see what I mean. Like,
yeah. I guess, yeah. You can't make a short movie this still. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's
well, it's just that's a different thing, isn't it? Like
yeah,
that would have its
exactly,
own
right.
rhythm, that would have its
Of
own.
course, right? Yeah. So yeah.
So is this which of because it clearly it's not Mysterious Object at Noon, but of Bumyoji-san and this, which is your favorite, do you think? Which is the one you
I
got
would
up?
say this one. Yeah, this one
Okay,
definitely got on
okay.
so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really liked it as well. I really liked it as
And
well. And
and I think it was also, as I said, it was interesting. I didn't really get on that well with Mysterious Object, but it was really interesting to see these two back to back, being
yes,
his
yes,
first
agreed.
movie versus his most recent movie. And it's like you could see definitely, as you said, a through line and like the thematics and things that he's really concerned with, but also at the same time, but I could see a progression, an evolution in his directing style and his choices, and so it was more of like it was interesting exercise in following a director's evolution, right? I mean, so
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you could argue as well, like in the same way as like David Lynch has certain obsessions that come up again and again. And if you were to
right,
compare, like, say, for instance, Mysterious Object at Noon and Eraserhead, you could also say that, like, in the case of both of them, even though Eraserhead is actually a much more cultivated film than this, but clearly he got like better at his craft in a certain way. But both Mysterious Object at Noon and Eraserhead, I would understand why for someone they would be that director's their favorite film of that director, just because they're them at their purest, right?
right,
No matter what else you think about it, it's like it's them at their most pure kind of
right,
big into the id kind of thing,
sure,
and
yeah,
and
I get
then
it,
the rest of his career is him still interested in kind of the same things, really. I mean, obviously
yeah,
things enter his life, he's interested in that, like goes away, but it seems like he has certain core kind of fascinations that just aren't going to go. I'm really excited to fill in the gaps between the two. I think I'll probably be watching all of his features, certainly.
Hmm.
Do you think you'll be seeking out some of his other films?
Probably not, but let me know if I should be.
Right. Yeah. I think I can probably judge
If I like it or not.
yeah, if something's going to be closer to
Yeah,
something
close
you
to
might,
my
yeah,
taste.
because you seem to especially with Memoria, you seem to have been a little infected by this filmmaker, right?
Well, again, I didn't. I don't mean to give the impression that I disliked any of these three films. Like there, I mean, I didn't dislike them. I can definitely appreciate them for what they were.
Right.
It's just, I think it didn't give me what I wanted from them. You know what I mean? That I think, I think I wanted something a little more, or I wanted to get something out a little more that I didn't get, kind of thing. So, or I was, so which is probably on me for my own expectations or things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just yeah. So, but I definitely can see how he can be seen as an auteur, and I can see why people would love his movies, and I definitely can see why he's respected. And although I had never heard of him before these movies, so but
Yeah, I'm
I'm
kind of
sure.
surprised I've never got on board before, but I am. But Memoria seems to be you. You was it the same with you? Was it like for a while you thought, oh, hang on, this is lost it, and then did you have overall when it got to the end? Did you feel as if it was it an unqualified success for you, or did you still have reservations?
Not unqualified. Actually, I actually was kind of yeah, almost the opposite from you, where I was following it until the final third, and then
Ah,
like
okay.
the guy I was impressed with the guy's sort of sleep death just from like an acting's point of view because I knew how difficult that is. But but again, I was confused by my subtitles, and I was busy. Oh, do I need to download another version so I can figure out what they were saying here? And so anyway, so I think I kind of lost my focus a little bit there. So I think I approached it a little bit better. I liked the mystery of the first 2/3 a little bit more, and then had to get through the end of it myself, right? So I think, yeah. So
I get the feeling that even though you might not necessarily go back through the back catalogue, if, for instance, next year a new Apichatpong Weerasethakul film came out and it looked kind of interesting and it had someone you liked in it, like Tilda Swinton, and it was easy to see because it would be on Netflix or something like that, I can easily see you, watching it, like choosing.
sure,
I'm definitely
I
gonna
mean, I want. It's not like a movie that a guy would say, "Oh, no way, no." It's not going to be like a veto or anything like that. So I mean, I'll give him a shot now. So I'll give him a shot, but
Right.
it's not something that I feel like I'm going to seek out in
Right.
my spare time. But if you bring it up again, I'll go along with it. So
He's definitely interesting, isn't he? I think, and one of a kind as well. I think.
yeah, I think so.
Like,
I think
I've heard some other, like, people compare him to people like Tarkovsky and people like that. If you remember, we did Solaris, and I
yes,
I kind of see what they mean in terms of like but I think he has a singular take on things which are just his own. I understand the comparisons, and I'm sure he probably likes some of those other directors that he's compared to, but his flavor is very much, I can't think of anyone else really overlaps, like, overlaps a little bit maybe here and there, but no, a Apichatpong Weerasethakul film is a thing in and of itself, right? I don't think anyone else is making films like this.
yeah. But I definitely think he's a film, how do I say it, like not even necessarily like a film student, but like he's definitely like a people who are interested in cinema, not just in movies. You know what I mean? Like people who are interested more in the technical or the sort of like the cinematic style of movie making rather than he's not for everyone. That's for sure. He's not going to be making any Marvel movies. That's for sure. Like, you know what I mean?
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
He's
Got a beret somewhere in his cupboard. Let's put it.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
As do we.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to see what his Marvel movie would look like.
Actually, me too. That would be quite interesting. Right. Okie doke then. So until our next is going to be our Christmas extravaganza, which is basically just talking to films that are
Christmas shit.
Yeah. And then after that, 2024, we shall be responding to Memoria. So until then, cheerio.
See you.